Okay, this second video, so the first one was really focused on who we are, and just the introduction to parent life. And so if you're watching this, you just make sure you watch the other one first because this one makes a little more sense when that one is watched. But the point of this is to kind of give a picture of how we do things in parent life and how we're structured and how we fit into Blue Ridge Community Church's overall system and way of thinking. And so this is, we'll try to keep this a little short, but we want to kind of walk through that. But we also are going to be talking a bit about serving values as we do it. So first off, the BRCC ministries as a whole. Now, this is what it is right now. This video was created at the beginning of January 2019. And so this is the way it looks, broadly speaking. I think there are going to be some different, maybe some different names in the learning focus category. I think they're kind of coming up with some different ways to present that. There may be a slightly different organization by the time you see this, but the overall idea remains the same. So what first point is very at the top is we submit to the BRCC leadership, the elders, the leaders of the church, the senior management team, we submit to them. And so we may challenge them on a point. We'll do that respectfully. We'll do that only in the case of where we feel like God's leading our ministry. But at the end of the day, we submit to them. And so the way that we are structured, the way we're organized, is it fits into the overall puzzle pieces that make up Blue Ridge Community Church. So that's number one. Number two, we're considered, as it is right now, part of this community and home focus group. We are considered an on-ramp for life development groups or life groups. And so some of the ones in that list in the center, life groups in general, which are home-based groups, that are comprised of individuals who kind of connected in one way or another. Some of them through our own ministry. They may have been in a home group in parent life and decided to continue on as a life group, maybe invited another family or two or whatever it may be. The ages, it doesn't matter. The makeup, it doesn't matter. It could be blended. It could be single parents. It could be kind of just a man and a wife, and a group of them together. It could be a mix of all of that. It just doesn't matter. But so we are an on-ramp for that in the sense that we are a 10-week kind of thematic or topic-oriented type of ministry that then, and at the very end of the day, we encourage community and participation in church. So therefore, it would make perfect sense that we would lead into some of these others. For example, single life is more of an ongoing type of ministry. Men's life and women's life are both more ongoing in the sense that they do a study, but then they continue on. And so some of those are like that. But married life and parent life are more of kind of a similar thing in that we're very topical. We repeat the same exact curriculum each time we do it, as I understand married life now. And so that's what parent life is doing. We're on ramp. Third, Dawn Hamilton is at the creation of this video is the director of these kind of connected experiences. And so she kind of helps to coordinate everything in that graphic there and some other things that I don't know about because I'm not dictating her job. But she's very focused on that center column, but especially how it relates to all of the others as well. And so Dawn is kind of the center point, and we use her as a primary contact. And finally, there may be opportunities in parent life where we have to refer, or we would like to refer rather, individuals to other ministries. So if really at some point it comes out that this marriage needs to kind of be worked on a little bit, and there's a really good place to start that may be married life, but it also may be over in the support focus column where you have things like Lifeline, we have caregiving ministries there, Jack Dunn's group at the creation of this video. So you can see how this could be. We at Parent Life love the idea of connecting with all of these at some level. Not that we do all of their jobs, but that we know what our job is, we know what their job is, and we want to make sure that as a part of the body of Christ, that this entire graphic represents the body of Christ in Blue Ridge Community Church, plus other pieces that are not on here. We want to make sure that we are fulfilling our particular function and that we are working for excellence with the rest. Now, we're going to spend a few minutes on the serving values, and if you've never read these or seen these before, we have a document that goes into more detail, has biblical references, and does a really beautiful job. And Peggy actually, Donna Dunn, wrote Peggy's story that has the serving values in it. Peggy kind of took a stab at it, and Donna's a writer and helped her write that out. And so we have that. I think it's 8 pages, something like that. And it's a really good read, and it kind of gives you an idea of the heart of the serving values and why we do it. I'm only going to give you a personal perspective that's a quick rundown about how this looks. Um, but I encourage all of you to be kind of thinking this way, because frankly, these 8 serving values are driving forces for why we do what we do. If we don't adopt this way of thinking, then we're doing it for the wrong reasons, and that's how solid these things are. So just to quickly state, there's 2 Randys in this world. I'm Randy Dunn, but there are 2 Randys in this world. There was the one before I adopted serving values, and there was the one after. Before, I'd been serving in preschool for years, and I did some stuff for a special needs ministry. I helped with small group leader, and I was on the stage a bit. Most of the stage work I did was after the kind of shift. But for a while there, I actually was looking at serving as they are lucky to have me there, because otherwise they would be in a pickle. It's thank Randy for the work. When people called up and asked me to come an extra service, I would get grumpy about it because I felt like it was draining me to go and serve. It was an annoyance. It was something that kept me from being able to do the things I would rather be doing from a selfish perspective. And so God started working on my heart, but He had to do it through some pretty difficult times to do that. And so I didn't hit exact 100% rock bottom, but I was heading that direction for sure. I got pretty close. So I had to start thinking about how I fit into the bigger scheme of things, and especially in God's plan. So when you start asking those questions outside of yourself, like if you start saying things like, this is best for me, this is best for what I do, this is best for how I function, and instead of this is how God can use me, when you start shifting that way out, you become less selfish or a more self-centered individual and become more selfless, which is where we want to go. So I'm just going to kind of walk through these 8 as I kind of tell the story a little bit and how it impacted my thinking. So, and the reason I put in parentheses next to each one of those are really the way I have to think about it. So the first one up is the loving God part, and that may seem like a simple thing. You could say, check mark, I love God. But do you really? I mean, is it really loving God, or are you basically saying that I love God, giving lip service to it, and then you're moving on? So loving God, in my mind, because if we are loving God, then we aren't focusing so much on ourselves. And I need this reminder on a regular basis. It's all about me, oftentimes, unless I can get out of my head and start loving God instead. And when I'm talking about loving God, I'm focusing more on Him and what He wants to do through me than I want to focus on what I can get out of something. The second bit is, in order to get there, I have to pray. And when we're talking about prayer, this is not the quick, let me ask the 5 things I want God to do for me today and then call it a day. It's not the, here are the couple things here that I need. It's basically asking God to equip us so we're ready for a battle, because the battle is the battle for the soul. And these are eternal consequences. And so we're talking, in the preschool world, we used to think about it as children. In our world, we're thinking about families. And our church is made up of families. Some of them are singles, some of them represent a larger family outside of our church, and some of them are just the full-fledged single parents with multiple kids, or married couples with multiple kids, just making up the fabric of our church. And so we are praying for God to equip us. And so in the beginning, I was thinking about it from a transactional point of view. What can I get out of prayer? And now it is, what does God want to use me for today? And how can I be excellent and honor Him in what I do? So loving God, moving and doing that through prayer. And then I started thinking about unity, because if I'm belonging to something bigger, there's a bigger purpose for me than me getting to Thursday without going nuts over something. And so unity becomes really important. And the unity is unity of purpose, in that I recognize what my role is in the bigger picture, and that I am doing what I can in order to fulfill that particular role. And then on top of that, I recognize what other people's roles are in the bigger picture, and how can I compassionately work with them in order to get there. Can you see how this keeps on shifting away from a self-centered point of view? When C.S. Lewis talked about the kind of root of all evil being pride, he wasn't lying. The thing that will take any one of these down is pride, because we start looking at ourselves, and then suddenly I'm like, loving God, I'll do that later, because right now I need me. And then prayer, I'll do this real quick so I can get through it because I need to do things for me. And in unity, I will do my function here, but frankly, I'm going to do what I'm expected to do, and I'm not going to do anything more than that because I need these things for me. The fourth one on the list is loving each other, and again, this may come across as a one of these. It's real easy to do checklist things, checkpoint. Oh, I love other people. I do stuff for people. I care about my family. I care about my spouse. I care about the extended family. I care about friends. I mean, these are things that we could say about that we love each other, but do we really love each other? And that's where it's forgiveness, it's functioning in grace, it's living out the way that we actually are preaching in parent life with our relationships with other people. That person may drive me nuts on a regular basis, but you know what? Creation of God, love them more than myself. I'm going to do everything I can to love that person right there. And you may be annoyed as all get out about the way that I even function, and that's cool. But again, are you loving me? Am I loving you? If we are loving God's creation, then we aren't focusing so much on ourselves. And this is where I have to function. I have to keep on reminding myself that it ain't about me. Number 5, excellence. This is a tough one because, again, we could say, well, we're getting stuff done. We're doing it right. But are we doing it with excellence? Are we doing it the very best that we can? In the world of preschool stage performance, we used to say we want to make sure that God is allowed to work through things. So we used to use that as an excuse not to memorize every word in the script, not to do everything exactly perfectly, and so forth. But it was a much younger person with wisdom that said, hey, Randy, that's great and everything, but the best way you can do that is be 100% prepared so that God can work in whatever way he wants at that time. But the way you change things, the way you do things differently, is not because as a result of you being ill-prepared. It's because you are so prepared that God can work through that. That's where we need to be. We fight against complacency and minimal competency. And this is for me, folks. I have to fight against complacency and minimal competency. I can pull it off. I'm good at pulling stuff off. But is that high enough? Is it excellent enough? And so for me, I have to remind myself that the stakes are way too high for me to just say, I'm just going to get it done. I'll get it done. I mean, it'll be okay. It may not be perfect, but it'll be okay. Well, that's not good enough. It's not about us, because when we make it about us, then suddenly all those other things get pushed to the back burner. Suddenly my own needs, Randy's needs, are more important than all these other things that come into play. So the statement's there, because of loving God and loving each other is enough to make sure that we aren't focusing so much on ourselves, Randy's self, too much. Then we need to make sure we explicitly remind ourselves that it isn't about us. I needed to come out of this. This was a big shift for me when I went out of I'm serving, and they should be so lucky and privileged to have me, to God doesn't need me at all. It's just that he's given me the privilege of serving, and this is where I'm going to benefit. Number 7, attitude. It's an absolute privilege to serve God. He doesn't need us. He really does not at all. He can use anybody he wants. He was taking the biggest, the littlest runts, the biggest losers in the Bible, and the worst people imaginable, and turning them around for his purpose. He doesn't need pretty good people like us. He can get it done without us. So our attitude isn't, as I just said, you guys should be so thankful. I mean, I personally am thankful for you, but God doesn't need you. But he's invited you in, and so there's a great opportunity for you to grow. And for me, as a result of all of those things, being prayed up, understanding my role in the unity, loving other people regardless, making it not about myself, thinking about serving becomes the kind of the result of that. And serving for me, so it used to be, it drained me. It was an annoyance. It got in the way of the things I had for my list that day, the things I was controlling. 2, when I serve, I am worshiping God, and I don't become exhausted. Honestly, I don't. I teach lots for a living. That exhausts me because I'm not serving God in that role. I mean, I guess you could say I am, but I'm actually serving my employer and my students. And so that can be a very exhausting thing, but I can tell you, when I serve God in the role of parent life, it doesn't exhaust me, because I got out of that mindset of look at me, look at me, look at me. And I'm not perfect. I'm still a prideful guy, But I have to remind myself that when I'm serving, I'm worshiping God. That's what I'm doing. Everything that came before, the other 7, led to that particular moment. And this was the overhaul for me. It shifted out of, I'm here on Sundays, or I'm here on Tuesdays or Wednesdays or whenever it is, and I'm just giving of myself and people should be thankful for that, to I'm here on Sundays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, whatever, and I'm here to serve God. And it's not about me. It's about what God's going to do through me today. And frankly, I'm pretty replaceable. I'm just part of the unity of the body of Christ here. I'm serving my function, but if he doesn't need me anymore, he doesn't need me anymore. It's not my ministry, it's his. So this takes us to the last little bit and think about, and this is only a tiny bit related, but we need to say it anyway. So we talked about where we fit in Blue Ridge. We talked about the serving values, which are Blue Ridge's serving values. And now how are we organized? Well, we have what's called the Parent Life Core. And the core is a group of families, or it's kind of moving towards individuals. So some members, like in the case of couples, one may be on the core and one may not be eventually. We're kind of moving that direction a little bit. But there are individuals that are basically helping to keep things coordinated. If we didn't have the core, which is just, I can say the past has happened. In the past, Donna and Randy Dunn, were kind of the only core members for a little bit before the leadership group came along. And we were doing everything, and it was pretty exhausting. Then the leadership group came along, and we still were figuring out how to share the load, because there's this kind of centralized way of thinking, and then there's everybody else. And we have to figure out how to get it out there. Well, we're getting there now. We actually have, you can see there are 5 bubbles there. Some of them are more connected to each other, but quickly, there's a leadership group, but that's mostly focused on leadership development, and it's for people who are new to parent life, new leaders, and things like that. But it also is just ongoing how we can support our leaders. And these are home leaders, is what we're thinking about when we think about leadership development. Ron Beverly right now, at the making of this video, is the person to contact. The second one is curriculum, going down to the right. And Leslie Beverly is kind of over top of that right now. The curriculum is a gathering of resources, and then the manuals were written by us. We did that ourselves. So Leslie is a core person there. She serves on core, and she kind of is the contact person for the curriculum group. The third one down is Casey Venters and Kate Cole, and those two are the man and the woman that are the primary contacts for spiritual health. And we call it spiritual health, spiritual care, and sometimes we call it spiritual development. This could be considered one of the most important roles from the core for kind of managing and leading. I don't want to say managing, but leading parent life, because we want to make sure that you are spiritually healthy, the participants, home leaders, and we want to make sure that everybody's getting what they need and they have the support they need. And so there's a way for us to get there, because like the honesty, bringing things to light, that's really important for our health. And then the next one across is administration and leadership. And administration is right now being led by Joanna Beaker, and administration is mostly dealing with budget, logistics, and some of those types of things. It's got its roles, and there's some pieces there. And the final one over on the top left, or the kind of top left corner, is communications, and that's Donna. And underneath that is branding and image and some of that stuff, T-shirts and signs, but also in communications is emails and calendar and all that kind of stuff. I didn't mention the retreat on the right-hand side. That's underneath curriculum. It also could be a little bit under administration because there is a budget aspect to it. But we also want to make sure that there's kind of a retreat team that focuses on making sure the retreat goes well. This is how we're organized right now. This could shift. It could change around. But I will say that as home leaders in parent life, this is mostly speaking to you, if there's one of these areas that you feel like you've been gifted in, or that you enjoy, or you're passionate, or you're enthusiastic about, or if you want to even think about it as, this is my discontent, my holy discontent, this is the thing that drives me, that I want to make sure is good, then I would suggest trying to plug into there. We're not going to tell you where to go, but this is a way to experience community. I will say that I've observed at least 2 home leaders that participated, 3 actually, that participated in some of these kind of focus groups, and how they become much more connected in their parent life as a result. So we're trying to be respectful of your time and allow you to have that, but at the same time, this is a really kind of an important thing.